never thought of myself as. And that's because I was trained as a sculptor, carving stone and working with wood and all that. But somehow when I came to Atlanta, I have yet to touch stone or wood since. And as a result of working in communities and teaching, having to teach certain kinds of techniques that were basically fairly simple and like teaching and that kind of thing, it somehow ended up sticking with me. Now, but now I've moved out of that range. Well, I'll always embrace it, and I believe I'll always embrace it because ultimately it was my mother and aunt who was seamstresses, and I think as a result of going to so many fabric stores in New York City over a long period of time, and weekends whenever they could go, that I think that really seeped into it. So now where I'm at, this is where I'm at. Genealogy, like I'm sure most of you have seen Henry Louis Gates' African American Lives, or Who Do You Think You Are? And, I am now in the rabbit hole relative to genealogy of my family, which is tied to the War of 1812, which we're in Africa. I have been going at Trinidad. My mother's from reached the discovery that in fact her people actually were enslaved in Trinidad. And during the war, there were some 4,000 to 5,000 African Americans who ran off with the British, most of whom did not fight against the Americans, but there were approximately 1,200 or more who did. And for those who survived, and that would be my family, they received 16 acres of land in Trinidad and were demobilized and expanded between 1850 and 1860. I now have those documents describing their escape by name, and there's a book that I just found out having attended the War of 1812 conference in Annapolis a few weeks ago. This gentleman is coming out with a book, Pulitzer Prize historian, on with my ancestors named in that book, which was really shocking. Who would have thought an obscure 200-year-old man? But anyway, so this is called Internal Enemies. So it turns out my folks were the internal enemies of the state. And I'm busy with this work right now.
I'll start with I'll start with 95. Those two pieces, same side down under. That was just after I came back from Australia. I went to Australia on a fellowship with Lionel Wallace Reader's Digest Arts International. That project took artists all around the world. You applied for the fellowship, directly, through Lionel Wallace. And I chose to go to Australia to link the community of Reynoldstown, and I've worked in Reynoldstown for years, but to connect that African American community to a community that was non-African in origin, just to make comparisons of what goes on in Australia, what was going on racially in Australia with the Aboriginal people, and what was going on in the United States with African Americans. And I don't know if you all know anything about the Aborigines, but their story is very similar to our story. And as a matter of fact, while I'm talking about the same side down under, one of the things that I found in living with the Aboriginal people on a mission, because they're placed on missions very much like our Native American communities are, the same kinds of issues that we have in this country, they have the same kinds of issues in that country. Blue-Eyed Tar Baby, that piece is really, I have this obsession with Toni Morrison, okay? I mean, The Bluest Eye to me is one of the greatest novels that's ever been written. It just speaks to the insanity, that we face as African Americans trying to maneuver and live, in this country. It's a tough call. You get up every morning, and I just told a friend of mine today, called from Mark, called today, and I was just telling him, that it would be just lovely to be able to just get up one day Just one day, I've been here almost 60 years, just one day I would love to get up and have a normal cup of coffee without crowd. Okay? And I've yet to experience that, just one day.
I started as a figurative artist years ago, and I was very fortunate working with Ed Spriggs to have an exhibition here, My Stories of My America, in 2001. It was a solo exhibition. And then, just in 2010, I was asked to do another exhibition, a solo exhibition here. It was, oh my God, I'm with you, Christmas. Oh, No Christmas Fair. Yes, that was, but during that time, I always was interested in wanting to transition into abstract. I didn't have a clear understanding about it, and so I did a little studying on it, and actually decided, okay, I would attempt it, not being very familiar with it. And it's not as easy as it seems. A lot of times people look at things and they say, well, I can do that. I knew I couldn't. I would touch it, then I didn't feel comfortable, so I'd back up from it, touch it, back up from it. So over the years, I decided, okay, study with artists that are familiar with this. Now, as you all probably know, in the 40s and 50s, Black artists would, they would use abstract art. They would try to exhibit in the mainstream museums and galleries, and were not accepted as we are now. I'm kind of a restless artist. I want to experience different things. I've worked with silk screen printing, and I went and studied with John T. Scott in order to get comfortable with the abstract genre, and more work also with that same intent. And what they showed me, because of the way I handled my brush strokes and the colors and the rhythms that I always try to introduce into my work, they showed me that I was doing abstract art in my own way. And I was able to they just said, you know what, you're doing this. And what John Scott did was actually just start isolating pieces of little areas on the paintings I was working on. And he said, you know what, look at this, and you see, and then in terms of what I needed to do was gain the confidence. And he said, you know what, you got the skills, and I enjoyed so much that experience, and I just sort of started branching off into it. And so the exhibition that I had here in 2010 was it was actually my 45th retrospective. And I was very fortunate to have it open here. And both those exhibitions actually travel throughout the country, mostly in the South. And also, I'm also very fortunate in that I have an artist's husband. He's a sculptor, and very supportive. And we work together on another medium we call sculpting paintings, and have been very well received in that as well. Sunken Treasures, actually, it's a story. And what I like about abstract is that, we all bring experiences to the table. And with the initial Stories of My America, what I enjoyed about that, it went to 7 or 8 different museums. And what was interesting about that is that when we start telling our stories, I can start a story and you can finish it. Because we have similar experiences with our genealogy, with our culture. We've all, with the Trayvon Martin case, let's say what it is. And we all have come from basically the same backgrounds. So that's what was really interesting. And I go to different areas of the country and speak to people about the exhibition, and was very, very excited because the stories continue. And it's up to us. And that's why being in a permanent collection with your artwork is so important, because we're archiving our stories.
Mildred, when he did prints, did not necessarily like to work in color. She thought that black and white was so much more dramatic and very, very strong. And she was asked to do a piece in color, and so she condescended to do color. But if you look at that piece
piece in color and you look at the black and whites, you can see a relationship. They have the same themes. And I'm going to name it Advancing Impulses. She did a series called Advancing Impulses. Now this has to do with the cosmos. You know, it was also absolutely struck by the cosmos and what happens. This is an impulse. You can see it in the colored piece that was done, and also the black and white. You can see a relationship. Those two are related. Those are both
So tell me, what's going on with her collection now?
Her collection, I've had since her passing. She died in '03, and I have had 3 exhibitions in Germany and 1 in France. But that's on the agenda, and I'm also a little bit late to the game, but I'm doing a website for her. So that's in the making now.
I usually have like all these different ideas, but this particular one, I think I heard on the news, they were looking into the last lynchings in Georgia. I think it was like in the 30s or what have you, and it was on 78, and they were talking about the reenactment and what have you. I thought it was very interesting. And then out of just curiosity, I just started looking at archives, and I saw different newspapers, like from, especially in Georgia, from the 1800s through the 1930s, and was looking at different new reportings on these lynchings. And I'm a very creative person. I mean, yeah, I'm a creative person. But I think a lot of my work usually based on narrative, like, you know, actual fictions, and I'm a dreamer by heart. I love to dream, so, but I usually respond very strong. I responded very strongly to these writings, and I wanted to see how I can able to use like this idea of fantasy, but then kind of like create a context of this historical context, and see how we can even deconstruct it, because there's a lot of artists have dealt with the idea of slavery and all that, and looking back at the past, but I wanted to have like a different interpretation on that, and wrap it with fantasy, but then keeping like the very essence of the brutality and the violence. I was really looking into how would it be as, you know, as that person, and you're hanging there, like what were they really thinking? You know, like I wanted to kind of see that. I didn't want to see the perspective of the reporter and of like these broad narrative. I wanted to see like what were they thinking in their head, like the moment when the and like, okay, I'm here, like I'm here because I peeked in someone's window and I'm here hanging, like, wow. I wanted to kind of figure out that, you know, and so that's where I'm trying to kind of look at. And the work, I'm experimenting the first time with printmaking. I'm doing like an experimental thing with etching and on top of monoprint. And because the name of the series, I think, is pretty cool. It's called The Black Soliloquies. And it's called, and the sub part of it is called the Triangular Migrations, Water, Soil, and Sky. And for the sky section, I'm just going to only have words. And those words are going to be pulled from all these different newspaper articles, from the archival articles about lynchings, and just kind of pulling that, but then layering it with like modern narratives.
Now, do you have work that's currently exhibited in any other place?
The Hammonds Museum.
Okay.
Like that show was a surprise for me, because at the time when I had my solo show, my second solo show at Soundhouse a few years ago. And Michael Brooks came and he really enjoyed the show and purchased the piece. But at the time, I didn't know that it was, while he purchased the piece, he was also thinking about this particular exhibition. So as a young artist and looking at all these luminaries and, which I really enjoy and I love, is that it's a bit kind of humbling and very perplexed by it because I'm so young in my career. I'm supposed to get my beard thing next year, so I mean, I'm really young. I feel as if I'm just kind of literally stepping into it and I'm deep. That's how I feel. So it's like being in a permanent collection, especially, we look at all the artists that have been exhibited. I mean, these are really giants, And you're right. And it's bizarre. It's kind of bizarre because I feel like I don't think I've yet reached that point of expression where to really, that's my voice. Because I'm still searching, I'm still investigating. I'm always looking and questioning and investigating different things. But I think part of being in a permanent collection, it really legitimizes you. It kind of makes you feel like, yeah, I'm doing something, and it makes me want to work even harder.